Welcome to the masterclass, Release Anxiety to Remember Your Bliss. I am Birgit Penzenstadler, and I am super happy to host you this evening. Really happy to be here, and I'm glad you could make it live. This is wonderful. And let me first give you just a couple of little background notes about me, and then I'm curious to hear what brings you here tonight, and then we'll walk a little bit through, well, how we can face anxiety better when it comes up. A couple of things that have helped me really well in the past, and then see where we could take it from here. Does that sound good? Okay, wonderful. So I was born and bred in Germany in a little place called Moosinning, and later during my life, I then moved to California for a few years and currently live in Sweden. I work as a researcher at the university. I'm at the University of Chalmers, currently as an associate professor here in Göteborg in Sweden. And at the same time, I've always had an avid yoga practice for like the last 20 years or so, with meditation, with some asana, and with some pranayama or breath work. And for the last 10 years, I've been wondering how I could bring those two sides together, if there is a way. And it turns out that many people who study at the university or who also work at the university as researchers, we get stressed out every once in a while. So for quite a few years, I've seen a lot of my students been really stressed out about deadlines, about stuff that is going on, about life circumstances. And so I thought, what would happen if I offered them a little bit of yoga in the class? What would happen, hey Claudia, if I could just introduce like 2 minutes of yoga after we take our break in the middle of the lecture? Would that be helpful for people? And so it turned out my students actually really enjoyed it. They love picking that up. And over time, I've expanded this more and more. I've become a breathwork instructor. I've become a yoga teacher. I'm a guided, I'm an embodied mindfulness coach. I do guided meditations twice a week on Insight Timer. And the feedback that I mostly hear is, thank you, finally somebody brings this to university. This is really helpful for us, and keep doing that. So I said, oh, okay. So it wasn't really about me hiding that other half of me. It was about being courageous enough to bring both of those pieces together and say, well, welcome, this is me. This is the whole package. Is this of any use to the world? And it turns out it is. And so that's what brings me here tonight, because a couple of the things that still come up frequently is when we get anxious, like how do we deal with that? And I've had my fair share of that. I've worked through it plenty of times, plenty of different occasions, and a couple of occasions that took me a few months to work through. So I'm not going to lie, it never becomes quite easy. However, we can become a lot better at it. So with a few of the tools that we'll talk about tonight, we don't have to be afraid of the anxiety anymore. At least that's what I find to be true for me. Like sometimes when I remember those dark times that I went through, it's almost like a fear could creep up of me getting into such a dark place again. But now that I feel pretty confident about some of the tools that I have for it, I'm not worried about that anymore. So I know, pretty sure the next curveball is going to come. Life is going to throw it sooner or later, and that's okay. I'm going to be as ready for it as I can, and then we'll work through it. So that's fine. I do remember a couple of times in my life where I noticed, okay, now it's getting really dark. So I remember a flight back from a research meeting that I had in Washington, D.C. And I was in a relationship at the time that wasn't healthy for me. I I was bending over backwards to make my partner feel safe because he was very jealous at the time, and I felt like I was walking on eggshells, and I didn't really know what to do, like how to really make him feel safe in that place. I've also learned a lot about relationships in the meantime. We can do our fair share, and there is no way to make another person fully feel safe if they are not secure in themselves. So it always takes two for the equation. But for just owning my part, I realized on that flight back home that I was so scared inside myself that I did not know how to behave normal anymore. I was just doubting the very core of my being. That was a very, very uncomfortable place to be. And I took a selfie on my phone to remember how freaking scared I looked in that moment. And I'm not going to pull it up right now because it's on a different hard drive, but I had these dark rings under my eyes and I just looked really scared. And you could see from the expression that I was going through a really rough time in my life. And that lasted for a few months until I found the strength to really change that situation. That taught me a lesson. So I swore to myself that I would never allow myself to be in that dark of a place again, that next time I would see the signs a little earlier, and that I'd also go ask for help earlier. And I did at the time, and I'm grateful that I did. And since then, I've been practicing these various tools. And whenever I do have a friend who seems to be struggling with a similar thing and they come to me and tell me about it, then I'm happy to share. So this is nothing that I ever want to push onto people. Like, here's how you do it. Here's how you fix your anxiety. No, it's not about that. It's more about how can we allow ourselves to be present with what is, to find the strength in ourselves to really face that anxiousness wherever it comes from, and to then say, okay, let me feel into this, let me understand where it comes from, let me look deeper into it, let me hold space for it. And we'll talk about a couple of ways of doing that, and then see, where can I go from here? That was a lot of words right at the start. So let's just settle in here for a moment. Let's take a couple of deep breaths with that. So join me if you like. If you like, you can close your eyes, or if not, you can keep them open. You're welcome either way. We'll just take deep inhales through the nose. And then with an exhale, relax. Another deep inhale here. Exhale, relax. And a third one, because all fairy tales say a third one's a charm. Inhale. Exhale, relax. And then just notice what is going on inside your body right now. And what are the physical sensations that you can feel into? Is there any tension in your body anywhere? Like, I can feel my shoulders a bit because I've spent quite a few hours on my laptop today. I can feel that my fingers are a little cold. I can feel my heartbeat in my chest. I can feel my pulse in my hands on my knees and in my crossed ankles. And I can feel the breath coming into the body and going out of the body. And I can notice how gravity works on my body, keeps me on the seating cushion. And then notice what emotions are running through your body right now. What is it that you can perceive there? Is there some peace? Is there some sadness? Is there some joy? Some anxiousness? Some content? Maybe some tiredness? And just notice. There's no need to try and change any of them. They always wash through us anyways. Usually emotions ramp up for a minute or two, and then they peak, and then they subside. Unless they cause a thought to pop up, and then we follow the thought, and then we start telling ourselves a story about the feeling. Then they sometimes stick around. But if we just let them wash through us and allow them to be there and take space, and they can just do the little wave thing and be on their way. And then the next wave may come. And the next wave may bring some of the same emotion, or it may be a different emotion, or just a slightly different quality of a same emotion. And then notice what's going on in your head right now. What thoughts are passing through here? Imagine yourself as if you were sitting in a little movie theater all by yourself, and all of your thoughts are just on the big screen in front. So you just get to sit back and relax and watch those thoughts, and they can do their thing on the movie screen. Okay. And then come back to the physical sensation in your body. Notice where you can anchor here. Like, what part of your body feels really safe to hang out in? Maybe it's somewhere in your lower belly. We have an energy center a few centimeters underneath our belly button. And it often feels good if we place a hand down there. In Japanese, that's called a hara. And so that center of gravity can help you feel connected to the ground. You can just feel your gravity from there and how it connects you downward, how it anchors you. Or maybe for you, it's your bum on whatever surface you're sitting on. Or maybe it's the soles of your feet that touch the ground. Just find something to anchor into. And then know that this anchor is always there for you. It's always available to you. And then from here, maybe you want to place a hand on your heart and listen to your intention. What's your intention for today? What brings you here? What do you need to receive? Yes, we do have a general topic for tonight, and maybe there is something specific that you're hoping for. Just be present with that intention. And then maybe share that need with us if you like. You're welcome to either unmute yourself or you can just put it in the chat if you're not comfortable with that. What brings you here?
Well, I'll have a go.
Go ahead.
I'm Svea. I completed my master thesis last year in technology and innovation management, and I wrote about requirements engineering for sustainability. So I read a lot of your research, and at that time I also started following a lot of researchers in the field on LinkedIn. And so I have been following up with your posts, and I also saw that you have been doing some coachings, and I didn't have or find the chance to join, but this seemed like a great opportunity, just 1 hour commitment, and I knew I was going to make it this Wednesday. And I saw that you have been moving a lot into mindfulness, and I have been thinking for myself about that topic for a long time because I was doing dual studies, so I was working and studying in the meantime, which did have me get stressed out once in a while, specifically when a lot of work coincided with a lot of duties and deadlines in uni. And before, when you were talking about yoga in university, I remembered that during my bachelor's, we had yoga classes, and I always used to go before exams. That's exactly when no one else would come, but I was there because it totally grounded me, and I was feeling so relaxed afterwards always. I'm like, now I'm ready to tackle this. So I could really relate to it. Yeah, so generally I was just very curious.
That's
and
great.
Coming here with an open heart and mind.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. Emma, would you like to share?
Yeah, so hello everyone, I am in Canada right now. So it's afternoon here. The reason why I am here is because I'm really aware about the future. So I'm currently looking for assistant positions in universities, and the whole process is very tiring and it's a lot of stress. I have been with a lot of stress, and I don't know how I will be, where I will be in the future, and all of these, like I'm worrying a lot about all of these different things, and I don't have the tools. I don't know. I'm very new in meditation, doing yoga, and I really think that it can help because most of my friends have told me that you should try to do these meditations, or at least just sit and close your eyes and think on what you are feeling right now. But I'm very impatient, and I try for a minute or two, and then I quit because it's like I need to do something. I cannot be here. And but today I promise myself that today I will be committed to your masterclass, and probably I will learn something very helpful for me. And this is what I'm really looking for. So thank you for you telling us your experiences and teaching us different tools that we can help. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, it's absolutely feasible that sometimes we just can't sit still and don't want to sit still. There are actually quite a few indicators for when sitting down for trying to do a quiet meditation may not be the right answer. Like in the moments when we are really anxious, it's actually much healthier for our nervous system to go for a walk, because it turns out that the movement of things going past us help calm our nervous system down. So a lot of the time, a walk outside in nature can calm us down way more than trying to sit down on a cushion when we already have a busy mind. Like it's better to practice meditation when we are not in a triggered state, so that the benefits are available to us when we do get triggered again. But for like the emergency toolkit, it's probably not the first tool that I would go to. And so we'll talk about a few others that might be helping in addition to those walks. Yeah, thank you. Claudia said she had to go take care of the baby for a minute and she'll be right back. Let's see. Would you like to share, Claudia, or are you still with the baby? I'll just let you unmute whenever you're ready. Okay, so not now. Fritz, is there something that you would like to share? Otherwise, also feel free to pop it in the chat.
Yeah, it's a female voice.
Hi, Sabine.
Because it's the two of us listening.
Oh, wonderful. Welcome. I'm so happy.
When I got your mail, I was very curious because I think in every age, it's a very important subject. And I can always learn something out of your speeches. Yeah, I do have anxieties sometimes, even if I think that it is very difficult for me to confess it to myself, that I'm not always optimistic and not always brave, but that there are anxieties. And so I'm just a little curious to find out what you tell us of how about to face anxieties.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay. Perfect. Good. Also, let's look into how we can approach this. We already started with the first one. So the first step, because anxiety usually happens up here. Like we feel it in our bodies, but we feel it there for just a little bit. What happens then is a thought kicks in, and then we start running with that thought. So a lot of the time, something may happen and I go, but that state, that doesn't really stay very long. What happens next is that then I start worrying about what could possibly happen as a next step. So for example, there's this deadline today that I almost forgot about. And then after that little shock to my system, so to speak, like there's a little bit of adrenaline in the body. And then the next thought that kicks in is all the horrible things that could have happened if I had either forgotten about the deadline completely, or how stressed I'm now going to be that I still have to make the deadline today, or what else I might not be able to get done because now I have to get that thing done for the deadline, or what could happen if I get it done less than perfect, Like our mind starts spinning all these stories if we allow it. And from every one of those scenarios, did you notice that there was no good scenario in there? Like our mind goes down all the negative pathways without missing a single one of the negative ones. We do forget about all the ways how things could go right. And the reason for that is that we have a negativity bias in our brains. It's just evolution. If we think back long enough, there were these two cavemen. The one was the happy hippie, so to speak, and the other one was the one that was always worried. And the one that was the happy hippie looked out of his cave in the morning, was like, oh, the sun is shining. There is a flower. Oh, there is a... And then it got eaten. They got eaten, he, she, whoever. And then there was the other one. There was the anxious caveman, the one that looked out, or cave woman that looked out and was like, oh my God, is it really safe? Is it really safe to go outside? And then looked around the next corner and looked around the next corner. Well, that's our ancestor. Welcome. So no wonder we have a negativity bias in our heads. And yeah, of course, I'm exaggerating with that example. It's just to make a point. So that negativity bias has been proven by many studies. And it's just to keep us safe. So that very critical voice inside of our head that keeps telling us about all the negative possibilities that could happen, and that tries to warn us about all the negative consequences that may or may not ever transpire, it just tries to keep us safe. So the first thing that we can do when we notice the physical reaction come up in the system is to really get into our body. So instead of allowing this thing to drag us up into the head and get stuck here, how can we ground? And we started with that in the meditation by taking a few deep breaths. That's the first response. Because when we're stressed out, the muscles around our ribcage tighten, the muscles around our abdomen tighten, and we don't breathe deeply anymore. And then stress perpetuates itself. So when we are in a stressed mode, our body is in fight, flight, or freeze mode. If you've ever had that day where you had this really long to-do list and you felt like you got done nothing whatsoever, that is because we get into a freeze mode when we're overwhelmed by the stress that comes in. It's like a deer caught in headlights. It's the freeze response of your nervous system. Your nervous system is trying to keep you alive because the nervous system does not understand that a to-do list is not going to kill us. It just perceives all the adrenaline that's in the body and is trying to protect us. So by getting into our body and really feeling physically, and it can help to touch in those moments, really physically feel that we are safe in our body, that can relax that first response a bit. And there are several ways of grounding. Like if I only have a few minutes to catch myself, then I can do some deep breathing and maybe can walk around the block. So forward movement is really good for the nervous system because as we are moving, that means we are taking action in response to this threat that the body physically perceives. Going for a walk, number one, always a good one. There is other ways of grounding physically. So moving our body can also be whatever exercise feels good to you. Now, there have been those times when I've gone for a run and I knew I was trying to run away from the thing that I was supposed to face. So I will also tell you that we can misuse that number one tool. So it's using the physicality to really get into our bodies, to really feel what's going on, not necessarily to run away from whatever we may not want to be facing. So just grounding in physical activity. Sometimes a run can be a good thing, But you will notice after a while, am I trying to run away from something, or am I just running because it feels good to move my body and to get it really sweaty? Weight training can be really helpful, or some grounding yoga poses. So the warrior poses, the standing poses, child's pose, where you have your forehead on the floor, chair pose, where you also work really hard with your legs. Those poses work really grounding on the body. So that's our first tool. And if you just take a second to think back to one of the last situations that stressed you out, where you felt some anxiety coming up, just go back to that in your mind for a moment. Pull up that scenario. And when you feel a response in your body, then come back to that anchor we established earlier during the meditation. Whether that anchor was in your lower belly, whether it was your bottoms, whether it was the soles of your feet, come back to feeling that anchor in your body. And then come back to the situation while staying anchored. Do you notice a difference if you go back to it while you're staying grounded in your body? So when I do this by myself, when I have a situation like that coming up, if I find a physical anchor in my body, I get less pulled up here. I get less pulled up into the monkey mind. Monkey mind doesn't get to drag me all over the place because I'm solidly anchored in my body. So that's the first piece of this. What is your favorite way of moving? What is your favorite way of grounding? As I describe this, what resonates with you? Is it going for a walk, going for a run, doing some weightlifting, doing some yoga? Just feel into what feels right for you here. So I really want to make sure that you walk away with something from here that feels really useful. That the next time this comes up, like, oh, I got this imaginary sheet in my back pocket. Let's see. Physical grounding. What was my favorite? What is the one that seems to work best for me? Like, what is the type of movement that I feel well with? For some people, it's getting into the water. For some people, it's swimming or taking a shower to literally wash it off. And just physically ground that way. Putting your bare feet on the ground helps. So just take note of it, what resonates most with you. Because your body is really the teller of truth. A lot of the things we talk about here, they're not news to you. Not at all. I'm just here to remind you of what you already know.
I have a question about it.
Yeah, go ahead, Claudia.
I'm back actually.
Yay.
So you were asking that, and I imagine I try to remember many different things that I do that make me feel good in terms of grounding. My question is, how do I know? Because as you told us, our body will tell us. How do we know from, I don't know, 5 things that make us happy, the one that really, this is or these are the things that really are working well? Because I imagine there are degrees of grounding, and maybe I don't have yet the sensibility to make a difference. That's why I'm asking, how can I pay attention to that so I know this is really working well?
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a great question. Let's feel a little bit into that one. So if I have 5 things that make me really happy, and we'll just pick 5 really different ones. Maybe going running is one of them. In what way does going running make me feel happy? Well, it raises my energy levels. I feel more alive. I feel how strong my body is. I can get sweaty. and afterwards I'm tired, so it's easier to relax. So that does sound like a grounding thing. It also makes me happy to drink a nice cup of coffee and have some chocolate with it. Does that ground me? Well, actually, the coffee amps me up and the chocolate kind of does the same thing. And after a while, I get a sugar crash. So maybe, while that is something that I may still really enjoy every once in a while, and that may even make me happy, maybe it's not the best grounding tool for me. I love dancing with some good music. So what is it about the dancing? Well, music has a really strong influence on how we feel in our body. So that by itself can shift a mood significantly. And the dancing gets me into my body, gets me to feel into my body, and gets me to express from the inside. So that feels like a good one. Let me ask, what of the ones that come to mind for you, Claudia, are you doubting? Because essentially it comes down to what makes you feel really good in your body. That's probably a good one. And maybe you don't need to have a number one. Maybe there can be several ones. So go ahead.
No, it was good the way you explain it, because, for example, dancing for me is one that I feel very good. And also taking a shower, but the feelings are different. I mean, during the shower, I'm really in the moment. So I feel grounded because I am in the moment. I feel my body. But dancing, I feel even more. But I don't know, depending on what I want to do, if I want to feel energized and strong in my body, is dancing. And if I want to feel like calmer and maybe, this type of grounding of being like more like calmer and more peaceful, then maybe it's a shower, for example. That's why I was asking. It's both are good tools, but sometimes you cannot take a shower, Maybe I can just go to the toilet and dance for a minute and this will work.
Yeah, I think those are super good points. So you actually raised two really good points. One point was not all of them may always be available to me in a given situation. Like if I'm at, let's say, a work location, maybe it's just not possible to take a shower right then and there, but I can go hide out and dance to my favorite song. And we may be in a different state of mind. Like we may not always need the same thing. Like even if I'm at home, so there could be different qualities to being anxious or being worried. There could be I have this permanent uneasiness. I don't know quite where it's from. I have this somewhat cloudy worry about the future. Then maybe I really want to raise my energy levels and go all out dancing. Or if I feel really shaky inside, if I'm like, oh my God, I'm so anxious, I don't even know, I'm just freaked out right now, then maybe I don't need anything to up my energy because I'm already at a charge level up here. So in that case, maybe the long hot shower is going to help me calm down more easily.
Okay.
So it's actually a perfect transition into tool number 2, which is grounding emotionally in what do I really need right now. So it's really about feeling into the quality of the sensations going on in our body. Like, what is that anxiousness asking of me? What is that worry asking of me? Where is my level of being triggered? Is it just this subtle feeling of uneasiness underneath? Is it just straight on stress because of a deadline? Or am I just freaked out right now because something is really scaring me and I'm super, super scared about something? So depending on the level of how triggered I am, I may want to lower my triggeredness and lower my level of energy, or I may want to bring it up because I'm hanging out down here and not getting anything done, just like just somewhat uneasy about things, and then increasing the energy may actually help. So it's always about what is the balance that my body is asking me for right now, and then what will be a healthy and self-loving way of giving myself that balance. Which also points a little bit to when we experience quite a bit of anxiousness, we can start looking into what am I actually putting into my body? And what am I doing to elevate or lower my energy levels during the day at the moment? So I know that if I go through a period where I'm experiencing a lot of stress, especially when I'm going through a tough time emotionally, where I know this is just going to take some time to digest. For example, the last time I went through a breakup, I took myself off coffee deliberately because I said, I do not need anything in my body that amps me up because I'm already freaked out about this tough thing that I'm going through right now. So especially the stimulants like caffeine, we may want to reduce them. I did the same with alcohol. Like a year ago, I just decided, you know what? With all the stuff going on in the world and my personal life, maybe right now that is not a good idea for me to put this substance into my body. And not saying I'm never going to enjoy wine again. It just was the realization that for the moment that was not a good thing for me, and I would just rather be in my body and feel it the way it is than to shift things one way or another by either amping up using a stimulant like caffeine or numbing it down by drinking some wine to not feel things that maybe I should better be feeling just so that I could deal with them. So the second piece is the grounding emotionally, like feeling into what do I need right now. And sometimes that means go take a nap. And sometimes that means get the heck out of the house and start moving, get that blood pumping, get that energy up. So your body will tell you if you allow it. And if we can take just a couple of deep breaths to turn inward enough to hear that voice. Are there more questions around the second piece?
I am not sure sometimes when I'm trying to work and I can't find any motivation because maybe the task is not clear or I need to do something that I'm not really looking forward to. In that situation, I'm not sure, because right now I was thinking usually I tend to just go nap, but it turns into this nap that doesn't want to end. So I was just thinking if that's then more the running away from it, because sometimes there's this kind of nap where you feel really replenished is the positive one, right?
Yeah.
Afterwards. But then this one is just, I realize now, actually making it worse. But I'm probably also rather thinking out loud that in that situation, I would guess now it might be better to go outside and get away from that state of, I don't know, being unmotivated, because I mean, napping is kind of the same thing. You're still not doing anything. What would you say?
Yes, I think you found your answer right there. Like it seems like when we are kind of stalling a little bit in front of the computer, like, oh man, this doesn't really excite me and my energy levels are low already. If we really listen inward, does that mean we're just gonna do something really calm, like take a nap, get those energy levels back up? I'm not so sure. Like if it was a different kind of work, we're like, "Oof, I just gave an online lecture and I'm just totally exhausted, then the nap might be the perfect thing to replenish that. If it's me slumping away, realizing, oh, I'm not making much progress and my energy is kind of low, then yeah, it brings more true in my body right now to say, let me get a little change of scenery. Let me pick up those energy levels by going for a walk or moving my body in whichever way. So yeah, go with that. Try it out next time. Let me know how it went. Good, sweet. Let's get to the third piece. We were already pretty on the verge of it with your question, just Svea, because the third piece is, well, let's look into it really on the mental level. Let's ground mentally. Like, what's really going on here? Especially when we start questioning the tasks that we have in front of us. Like, I didn't really get clear instructions on what I need to do here. I haven't figured out how to solve this. How do people do this? If we knew what we were doing, it wouldn't be called research, but I have no clue where to go from here. And then we start talking down on ourselves. So that can easily spiral into us completely stalling. Or when we are at a bit of an anxious place and we're like, oh, I really don't know how to move forward with that problem. If I do that, but then that could happen, and then that could happen. And ooh, that doesn't seem like a good way to go. But if I go that route, then that, and then like we feel ourselves constricting and making ourselves smaller. But the interesting thing is we always try to think step after step after step, 7 steps down the line, at least. And the truth is, we don't know what's going to happen after the next step. We like to think that we do. We like to think we can figure it all out. We make a great plan, and then we follow that plan step by step, and that's exactly how the world's going to be. Somebody who told me a long time ago, like, how do you make God laugh really hard? You make plans. So that sometimes for me is a good reminder of, oh, maybe I don't need to think 7 steps down the line. Maybe I just need to figure out what the right next step is. And a lot of the time, we do know what the one next step is. So I don't need to figure out how this whole process is going to go. And that applies to the tasks I do today as much as during the problems that I had to figure out during my first semester at university, or like even earlier. I think it applies to any phase in life. The mind just loves going into this, but what about 7 steps down the road? That's so far away that I really don't need to worry about it. But the mind loves doing that because it tries to protect us from anything that could possibly happen. And we know it can't really. So we can just go, thank you, dear mind. I heard you. I'm going to do my best. This is the next right step that I can go from here. So if we can just rein ourselves in and say, all right, I don't have this full task figured out. I didn't get a good instruction for how to do this. Let me do the next right thing from here. And then I'll take it from there. How does that resonate in your body? You usually know the next right step, right? Not 3 or 4 down the line, but the next right step. We maybe don't know yet where Gemma's career is going to take her, at which university she's going to become professor. But we know it's probably going to involve keeping the eyes open for some position descriptions and keeping open ears in your network and telling a bunch of professor friends that you may already have in your network, hey, by the way, I'm going to be on the job market. Let me know if you know something. So like, there are a few next steps that you know very well. And yes, of course, we're not going to know how it's going to turn out from there. But that way, by taking action, by taking that next step, we get ourselves out of that mental loop. That's maybe the most important piece of it. So you know the next right step, or a next right step, because that's the other trick that the mind likes to play on you, or on all of us, me included. But what if I take the wrong next step? Like, that doesn't exist. You can take a right next step. And that way we get out of the freeze. And from there, things can go back into flow again. So that movement piece, that action piece, is really important for our nervous system. The physical movement, as well as the mental movement in, let me just take the next one step to get ourselves out of thinking loops. How's that line for you? Is this useful?
Yes.
Good. I'm glad. We just have a few more minutes here. So are there other questions that came up for you?
I have a question about breathing.
Yes.
We talk about breathing in the first response. You talk about body, and usually, and also when we think about, for example, meditation and many other practices, that we go back to the breathing. And I know how healthy breathing can be, and if you are in a condition, that's my question. Sometimes, I don't know why, but my breathing is completely shallow. So if I use it to ground me, I end up really, more anxious. And then trying to fix my breathing, and it doesn't work. And then it's a disaster, I try this sometimes. Oh my God. Now after pregnancy, something happened in my body. My breathing is better. I think there is more space inside for some reason. But even with that, sometimes I feel weird about my breathing. So my question would be, as I know that this will increase my anxiety, is there something that I can, like, first step that I can do about this?
Yes. Yes. Two thoughts on that one. The first one is making the exhale really long and thin. So if we can just start breathing slower, the inhale slower, and even more the exhale slower, that may shift a little bit. And then the other piece that comes to mind is we usually inhale quicker. So when we inhale, we can get full a lot quicker. And then if our exhale is not long enough and not deep enough, then we have too much residual air still in our body. And then as we inhale again, we feel like we're not really getting air because there's not that much space left. And so if we do that a few times, so we think we're relaxing, but we're doing this. And I'm exaggerating right now just to make the point, but so I wasn't exhaling sufficiently. And so now with every inhale that I did, the inhales and the exhales sounded kind of like the same length, but because we usually exhale with less force or not as much air comes out at the same time as would come in during that same period of time, we end up with a fuller lung after every breath until we feel we can't get any more air in. But we think we've been breathing out the entire time in between. So it doesn't make sense to us. Why do we get stuck? Why do I feel like I can't get air? And then we get more anxious. So my suggestion to counteract that is to count the breathing, like breathing in for count 4 and breathing out for a count of 8. That is a good rule of thumb to go by. So we inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we inhale again for 4, 2, 4, and exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if I do that right now, like with a count of 4, I am full. And then exhale for 8. I don't even manage to get my lungs completely empty during that time. I could have pushed a little harder, but just to make that point. So we need the exhale to be quite a bit longer, especially if we want to calm our nervous system. So inhaling for 4 and exhaling for 8 may be a good reminder to help you make the exhales long enough. Does that ring true in your body?
Yeah, I think I'm taking notes here. And also, I think this makes all sense. Sometimes I try to do this longer exhale, but then my body seems a little bit weak. I don't know. Or maybe it's posture, or I don't know. And I should be doing this, trying this little bit every day. And then eventually I will feel okay with the 8 times. Or something else. I don't know.
So you're saying the 8 that feels like very long, and you have to kind of fight to make it 8?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't need to stress the 8. If at the beginning it's 3 and 6 or 4 and 6, that's fine. And then after a few days, you'll probably be at 4 and 7, and eventually you'll be at 4 and 8. But the idea is to, over time, make that exhale long enough. And you can even just blow it out through your lips to slow it down. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then
Okay.
so try out both versions and then just see what feels better in your body and roll with that. Just trust your body on it.
Because the body is like way calmer than the opposite when the exhale is not good enough. It's not long enough. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So you could actually flip the pattern. And there's this American yoga teacher. His name is Lucas Rockwood, and he lives in Barcelona. He has lived there for many years, and he calls it the whiskey breath and the coffee breath. So the whiskey breath is the one that has 4 inhale and 8 exhale. That's the one to really calm you down. And if you were to flip the count around, if you inhale for 8 but just exhale for 4, that way you can ramp your energy up quite quickly and easily. So if you ever need that and you don't want to drink the coffee, you could go that way. I think for most people it's just really important to learn the whiskey breath so they can use that instead of drinking the real whiskey. You're still allowed to enjoy your whiskey if you feel like it, but I'd rather you enjoy it instead of using it to calm you down. Yeah, so I hope that helps. And yeah, just giving your body the time to adjust to those longer exhales, that's a good thing. And the count is just a rule of thumb. Like whatever count makes you feel comfortable in your body is good, as long as the exhale is longer than your inhale.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good. Do we have other questions? We are already on the full hour, so I also don't want to take more than your time, because I'm grateful that you spent this hour here with me. I find that lovely. If you are interested in more of this work, you will receive a newsletter because you subscribed for the seminar. So if you weren't on there before, then you're going to get my one weekly email on Tuesdays where I send out some happy inspiration. Most of the time, happy inspiration. Sometimes it can also be a not so over the top and just thoughtful piece, but hopefully something that you find useful for your personal practice, for looking a little deeper inward, for finding some of that natural bliss underneath. Because the thing is, whenever that anxiousness sneaks in, it kind of covers everything up. It puts a big blanket on us that makes us worried and look around. Our natural state is joyful, is blissful. And so we can get back to sensing that the better we get into our bodies. So the less we believe the shenanigans that our mind tries to make up. And I don't want to put the mind as not being useful. The mind is a great tool. Listen, tool. It's not the one running the show. Your awareness is running the show. Your awareness is your centerpiece, your beautiful soul. And that awareness resides within your body. And your mind has a great capacity for thinking through all sorts of things. It doesn't get to run the show. We can trust in the truth that we feel in our bodies and let ourselves be guided by that. You always know the next step, and you can always ground in your physical body. It's always here for you. It keeps you safe. And that is what helps you hear your inner voice. The one that tells you, we got this. I don't know what it's going to look like 3 steps from here, but we know the next step. If you feel like you want to talk to me about more stuff, I do have a couple of spots for new clients to take on. So I just put a link in the chat for scheduling a clarity call with me. Also, if you just want to go deeper on some of the things we talked about today that you would rather discuss one-on-one as opposed to in a group setting, then yeah, hit me up. Let me know when we can chat. And if not there, then I hope to see you in either one of my breathing sessions or on Inside Timer in a guided meditation, or wherever else our paths may cross again. And with that, I want to thank you very much for your time tonight. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. Be well.
Thank you, Birgit, for sharing your time with us and your experience.
Yeah, thank
It
you
was
very much.
pleasure, very helpful.
I'm glad to hear
Thank
that.
you very much.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, danke Birgit. Thank you all. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Danke, Birgit.
Good
night.
evening.
Good night.
Bye bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.